Video here, I'm going to kind of demonstrate a couple of different ways to do the angle constructions and also the segment constructions as well. So I'm going to start out with some angle constructions. So the first two at the top of the page here, number 1 and then also number 4, we're going to be copying an angle. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my compass. Yours may look a little bit different than mine, but they basically all work the same way. You've basically got a sharp point on one end, and then your pencil will go on the other end. Yours may kind of look like this. Yours may be just a circle at the top with two sticks coming out. Either way, the biggest thing to be careful with when you're using a compass is that the setting doesn't change while you're swinging around. There's some compasses out there, especially the plastic ones, they seem to kind of slide as you're trying to make an arc here. So for the first one, for copying an angle, the first thing we have to do is draw a ray. Basically, this is going to be a spot where I can put my angle on later. So remember, a ray has one endpoint, goes on forever in the other direction. So then next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my compass and put the sharp point on the vertex of that angle. That's the S in this case. And I'm going to adjust my compass so that I can basically swing through. It's almost like I'm making a congruent mark through that angle. So I'm making a little arc there. And since I'm copying this angle, I need to move my compass using that same setting to the end point of my ray. And I'm basically making the same arc as if I was imagining that that angle was already there. Okay, so I can kind of guess that the angle is probably going to come somewhere through here. So I need to make sure I make my arc big enough that it would swing through that whole angle. Okay. The last step is you're going to use your compass to kind of measure in between the two intersections here that we made earlier. Okay, so that means I'm going to put my sharp point on one of those intersections, and I'm going to put my pencil point on the other. So I'm just kind of measuring in between those two with my compass. Okay. Then I'm going to move and put my sharp point on the only intersection I have so far on the new angle. And then swing my compass, and it should make a little X. Okay. The last step, I'm going to take my straight edge. In this case, I don't have a straight edge, so I'm going to use my line tool. And I'm going to go through the end point of the ray and also through the X. So right there I've copied that angle TSA. Okay. For the ones down below, you'll notice for like 2 and 5, they're a little bit different. This one, you'll notice I'm going to copy that angle TSA twice. Okay. So that's what the 2 times means there. So I'm going to look up above here at my TSA. Again, I got to start out the same way as before. I've got to start with a ray, somewhere to put these angles. And again, sharp point on the S. And I've got to swing my compass through this angle. And then I'm going to copy the same arc over to the new ray. So I start with sharp point at the end point of the ray, and I'm going to swing through. Now you'll notice the difference between this one, number 2 here, and what I did for number 1 up here. You'll notice that I made my arc a lot bigger. And the reason why I did that is because my arc is going to have to hold two of the angles, not just one. So it's going to open up a little bit more than just the regular TSA. Okay. Then the next step, I'm going to measure between those two intersection points up top. So this is, up to this point, we're doing the same steps as number one. I'm going to move the sharp point over to the one intersection that I have and make an X. Okay. So if we were just copying TSA, we'd run the line through there, through the endpoint and through the X, and we'd be done. But we have to copy two of them. Okay. So I'm going to put my sharp point where the X was, and I'm going to keep swinging a little bit further to the right till I have another X, another intersection point. So I started with the first one coming off the ray. That would have been one angle TSA. Then I moved it to where I left off, and I swung to get to the second angle TSA. So then the last step, through the endpoint, through the X. So now I've got twice that angle TSA. Okay. Now for angle 5, we're going to create angle FBI, so that FBI is the addition of both TSA here and JMU. Okay, so same step to start out with. Got to draw my ray. Then I'm going to draw my arc through that angle TSA. Oops. And I kind of make sure that my worksheet's not getting too cluttered up. You notice I'm using the same arc measure through that angle TSA all 3 times here. You could have used separate ones, but you would have had a lot of arcs going through TSA, and it might have been a little messy. So you don't have to use the same one, but I did just to kind of keep it simpler here. So I'm going to next put my sharp point on JMU. I'm going to do my same little arc, same measurement that I used over here on TSA. Again, that's going to be just to make this angle addition a little bit easier here. Okay. So then my next step, sharp point on the end point there. Spin my compass around a little bit. So I'm going to put my sharp point on the end point. And I'm going to swing my compass through as if that angle was already there. Oops. And again, I'm making this arc big enough so that I know that I can fit this angle TSA and also the angle JMU, both on that arc. Okay. So then the next step, I'm going to copy the TSA. So I'm going to measure in between those two intersection points again. Okay. Then I'm going to move over, sharp point on the intersection that I have. Make a little X. Now, remember, for number 1, we would have stopped here because we copied TSA at this point. For number 2, remember we picked up and copied that same arc down because we had 2 of TSA. But now, instead of adding TSA plus TSA, I'm going to add the distance here between the intersections on that JMU. Okay, so I'm going to measure between the 2 intersections on JMU over here, put my sharp point where I just left off, and I'm going to swing down till I intersect that original arc again. Okay, so in the last step, draw my line through the endpoint and through the X. And that's my angle FBI. Okay. For number 3 here, you don't need to worry about that. Was for the pre-AP class. So we're not going to deal with subtracting angles in this course. Okay, so continuing on the back here, we're going to do the angle bisector. So I think these are actually a little bit easier than the copying an angle, not constructing an angle. It just takes less steps, so I think it's a little bit easier. So all of these on the back page, you're actually just doing the angle bisector for every single one. Doesn't matter if I've just got the angles up there, if I've got a triangle. Remember, for this one, you'd be cutting the angle DOG, so that means that's the angle at O there. Okay. And for number 8, you'd be drawing the angle bisector and basically seeing is point A on that angle bisector that we draw later. So all of these are going to be the same construction. Okay. So I'm going to start with number 6 here. So kind of like the same step as copying an angle. I'm going to start with my sharp point on the vertex, and I'm going to swing all the way through my angle here. Okay. Now, I'm kind of lazy, so I don't like to change my compass setting a lot unless I need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up and put my sharp point on that bottom intersection, and I'm going to swing through the middle here. Okay, because remember, an angle bisector is going to be going through the middle of this angle here. Okay. Then I'm going to pick up, use the same measurement I used before, same compass setting. I'm going to swing through the middle again. And you'll notice that I have formed a beautiful little X there. Okay. Now, if when you go to do your compass settings and your arcs there, this final step, they do not cross, have no fear, haven't messed up anything too bad. Just go ahead and erase those arc marks and then stretch out your compass a little bit more and then swing and try to make your X in the center. Usually it's because your compass setting is just too small. Okay, so the last step, I'm going to go through T and through that little X there, and I've got my angle bisector. I've cut this angle in half.